Simple woman is humiliated at the dealership. The next day, her billionaire husband bought everything. That sentence would echo forever in Isabella Souza's memory, but on that Monday morning, she could not imagine the storm that would begin with a simple stop at a luxury dealership. Dawn still painted the sky orange when Isabella, 34, finished her last delivery of hot soup to elderly people in need. Her jeans were the same pair from 5 years ago, the plain white blouse held tiny, invisible men's, and her shoes carried the miles of kindness she had walked. No one at Imperial Luxury could guess that behind that modest look was a woman who had donated over $400,000 to children's shelters in the past year. "God bless you, my child," whispered Mrs. Martha, 82, as she received the final meal from Isabella's hands. In the old car, a 2012 hatchback with 300,000 kilometers, she called her husband, Raphael. "Love, I am stopping by the dealership. Anna's car is making that strange noise again, and you know how she needs safety to take the kids from the program to physical therapy." On the other end, Raphael's calm voice came through. "You have the black card, dear. Buy whatever is necessary. Remember the meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with the investors from Singapore?" Isabella smiled. "Do not worry, I will be back in time. It is just a quick exchange." Parking her simple car in front of the imposing Imperial Luxury, Isabella felt the contrast. Tinted glass, blue neon, and cars worth more than many houses. She adjusted the canvas tote, a gift from the children at the orphanage she supported, and walked in. Cold air and the scent of new leather greeted her. 2 salesmen in immaculate suits looked her over from head to toe. One of them, Charles, sales manager with a wristwatch that cost more than Isabella's annual salary back when she was a social worker, approached with a smile that never reached his eyes. "Good morning. May I help you?" "Delivery parking is around back," he said, his gaze sweeping across her simple clothes. Isabella held her ground. "Good morning. I am interested in the silver SUV in the window. I need a spacious, safe car." Charles laughed softly, trading a look with his colleague. "Ma'am, that model starts at about $90,000. Perhaps our pre-owned section. It is 3 blocks from here." "I understand the price," Isabella answered evenly. "I would like a test drive and to review payment options." Charles's expression hardened. "We do not do test drives without a prior credit check." And honestly, he lowered his voice. "Our clients usually arrive in BMWs or Mercedes. Perhaps we should save your time." At that moment, a well-dressed couple entered the dealership. Instantly, Charles transformed, beaming. "Mr. and Mrs. Montenegro. What an honor! The Porsche Panamera you ordered arrived today." Isabella persisted, stepping closer to the SUV. "I would really like to." Charles cut in, patience gone. "Look, lady, I do not know your name. I have been polite. That car is not for your kind of person. Now, if you do not mind, I have real clients to attend to." The Montenegro couple watched with discomfort. The woman whispered to her husband, who shook his head in disapproval. Isabella felt her face burn. "My kind of person? And what kind is that?" "People who wear thrift store clothes and drive cars that barely make the payment," Charles replied, loud enough for others to hear. "This is a luxury dealership, not a used car auction." Tears threatened, but Isabella held them back. She looked at Charles, at the embarrassed clients, at the other salespeople avoiding her eyes. With a dignity that hurt, she said softly, "You know nothing about me or my kind of person." As she turned to leave, she heard Charles tell the couple, "Apologies for the scene. Some people simply do not know their place. Outside the dealership, under the noon sun, Isabella drew a long breath. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up the phone. On the other end, Raphael answered immediately. He always knew when something was wrong. "Love? What happened?" Isabella swallowed. "Remember when you said I should make better use of our resources? I think I finally understand why." Meanwhile, inside Imperial Luxury, Charles celebrated with his team. Crisis averted, folks. Remember, time is money. Do not waste it on dreamers. He did not know that exactly 12 kilometers away, Rafael Souza was already typing fast on his laptop, a hard expression on his face. The most discreet billionaire in the country was about to step out of the shadows, and Charles would soon learn the true meaning of crisis. Isabella drove home with her hands still shaking on the wheel. Every red light stretched the humiliation, and Charles's words echoed in her mind, "Your kind of person." She breathed, remembering that years ago, before Raphael, this would have crushed her. Now, something different simmered in her chest, not only anger, but a quiet resolve. Meanwhile, in Raphael's office, the usual calm broke. He ended the call with Isabella and, for the first time in months, canceled the meeting with the investors from Singapore. His assistant, Marcos, was stunned. "Sir, it is a crucial meeting," he began. Raphael raised a hand, a rare sign of impatience. "Some things are more important, Marcos. Prepare the jet. We fly home today." As Isabella parked in front of the modest house they had chosen, a simple place in a quiet neighborhood, far from the spotlight of Raphael's fortune, she felt the weight of her double life. Inside, every object told a story: photos of smiling children from their social projects, books on inclusive education, a vase of flowers from a garden she tended herself. It was a refuge of authenticity, but in that moment it felt like a stage set where she no longer knew her role. She sat on the couch, hugging a cushion the orphanage children had sewn for her, and let the tears fall. Not because of Charles's words, but because of what they meant. The world still judged by appearances, and she, who had devoted her life to fighting injustice, had fallen to the shallowest of them. Meanwhile, Raphael was on his way to the airport. In the car, he made a discreet call. "Anna, I need everything on Imperial Luxury, ownership structure, debts, key clients. And I want the name of the manager who insulted Isabella." On the other end, his legal advisor answered with professional calm, but heard an unusual chill in Raphael's voice. He hung up and stared out the window, remembering the day he met Isabella. It was 8 years ago, at a dog adoption fair. He was incognito as a regular volunteer, seeking a moment of normal life away from billionaire pressure. Isabella arrived with a bag of dog food and a smile that lit the place. She did not know who he was, and he, for the first time, felt seen for who he was, not for what he had. They talked for hours about simple dreams, a garden, a family, making a difference. That night, Raphael knew he had found something rare, a genuine soul. Back in the present, Isabella dried her tears and called her sister, Anna. "I need to postpone the surprise," she said, meaning the car. Anna, always perceptive, heard the sadness in her voice. "What happened, Bella? Did someone hurt you?" Isabella shared the basics, and Anna exploded. "That is unacceptable. Raphael must do something." Isabella calmed her. "I do not want revenge, Anna. I want these people to learn. Raphael is already moving, but I fear it will be drastic." She hung up and looked at a photo on the wall, she and Raphael, in a park, laughing like teenagers. That gentle, reserved man was the same one who ran an empire with an iron hand when needed. And she knew that this time, a storm was coming. On the private jet, Raphael reviewed documents on his tablet. Marcos, seated across from him, ventured, "Sir, Imperial Luxury owes about $40 million to the bank. We can acquire control for a fraction of that." Raphael did not look up. "I do not want only control, Marcos. I want everything. And I want the current owner, Richard Almeida, to know why he is losing it." His voice was calm, each word a knife. He then asked to be left alone and called Isabella. "How are you, love?" His voice softened at once. Isabella sighed. "I am reflecting. Raphael, promise me you will not destroy lives. Remember what we went through?" He remembered. Early in their relationship, Isabella had learned of his wealth by accident, when a newspaper published a photo of him at a charity event. She was devastated, feeling deceived. It took weeks of conversations for her to understand he had to protect his privacy and values. "I promise it will be a lesson, not destruction," he said, though his eyes held the resolve of a man who would rain fire if he must. At Imperial Luxury, Charles was celebrating with his team. "We sold the Porsche to the Montenegros. Bonus secured." He did not notice Daniel, the young salesman who had witnessed the scene with Isabella, slip away quietly. Daniel, 24, raised on the outskirts of the city, felt ashamed of how Isabella had been treated. He remembered his mother, a seamstress, humiliated in a store for not having the look of a customer. Now, alone in the restroom, he sent an anonymous message to the corporate email of Raphael's holding company, something he found with a quick online search. "Dear Sirs, today a woman was humiliated at Imperial Luxury by our manager Charles. I believe you should know." He did not know the message would be read within minutes. Raphael received the security alert about the anonymous email. A cold smile touched his lips. Someone inside still has a conscience, he thought. He ordered the acquisition to accelerate. Meanwhile, Isabella decided to visit the social project she coordinated, Children of Tomorrow. There, she was greeted with hugs and laughter. The children, many living through hardship, did not see her simple clothes, they saw her heart. It comforted her, but also reminded her why she chose a simple life, to stay close to those who truly mattered. Still, a question haunted her: was it time to use her influence to change systems, not just individual lives? By day's end, as soon as the plane landed, Raphael went straight to a meeting with Richard Almeida, owner of Imperial Luxury. Richard, a middle-aged man with an arrogant air, received Raphael with deference, unaware of his real intent. "Mr. Souza, an honor. How may I help you?" Raphael, a glass of water in hand, answered calmly, "I am interested in your company. But first, I want to hear about your values." Confident, Richard spoke about exclusivity and a high-end clientele. Then Raphael dropped the bomb. "And how do you deal with employees who humiliate clients based on appearances?" Richard's face paled. He had no idea about the incident, but knew Charles was efficient at filtering clients. "Mr. Souza, I assure you that does not happen here." Raphael raised a folder. "I have recordings and witnesses. Let us make a deal. Sell me the company, and I spare your reputation. Otherwise, this goes to the press." Richard broke into a sweat. Raphael's empire could destroy his life in hours. Meanwhile, at home, Isabella received a call from Daniel, the salesman. He identified himself and apologized for what had happened. "Mrs. Souza, I felt awful. I work there to support my family, but I do not agree with those practices. Isabella, moved, thanked his courage. "You did the right thing, Daniel. But promise me you will not put yourself at risk for this." They spoke briefly, and Isabella felt a spark of hope. There were good people everywhere. She did not know that, after the call, Charles would confront Daniel, having discovered the anonymous message. "You are a traitor, Daniel. You are fired," Charles shouted, unaware that the dismissal would be the least of his troubles. Leaving Richard's office, Raphael made a final call to Isabella. "Love, everything is under control. Tomorrow, Imperial Luxury will have new owners." Isabella felt a chill. "Raphael, what did you do?" He did not answer directly. "Trust me. And be ready, you will have an important role." As Isabella ended the call, a deep unease took hold. Raphael's cryptic words echoed in her mind, and she could not imagine that, in that same moment, Daniel was gathering his belongings under the hostile stares of his co-workers. Night fell over the city, bringing the weight of secrets about to be revealed and alliances that would forever change the fate of everyone involved. The coming storm would not be only about business, but about souls. The morning after Daniel's dismissal rose under a gray sky, as if nature itself braced for the conflict ahead. At Imperial Luxury, Charles arrived earlier than usual, striding through the sales floor with arrogant steps. He adjusted his expensive watch and greeted the security guards with a condescending nod. Firing Daniel had been a warning to the team. Questioning him was forbidden. As he arranged papers on his desk, he had no idea the glass walls would soon witness his fall. Meanwhile, in his office, Rafael Souza studied the final acquisition documents. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes held a contained storm. Marcos entered with a tablet. "Mr. Souza, Richard Almeida signed the papers. Imperial Luxury is yours as of 10 o'clock today. He asks not to be dragged into any negative publicity." Raphael nodded curtly. "Send in a transition team immediately. And find Daniel, the salesman who was fired. I want to speak with him." Marcos made a note, then hesitated. "Sir, Mrs. Isabella called earlier. She sounded worried." Raphael exhaled. He knew Isabella would learn about Daniel's dismissal sooner or later, and her reaction could change everything. Isabella woke with a restlessness that had not left since her talk with Raphael. While making breakfast, she received a message from an assistant at Children of Tomorrow. "Daniel, my friend's cousin, was fired from Imperial Luxury. Remember he helped you?" Isabella froze. Daniel was the one decent person in that place, and now he was jobless for his conscience. Without a second thought, she called him. "Daniel, this is Isabella Souza. I heard what happened. We need to meet." They chose a simple cafe near the project. Daniel arrived with dark circles and trembling hands. "Mrs. Souza, you did not need to worry," he said, though gratitude showed in his eyes. Isabella placed her hand over his. "You were brave, Daniel. I will not let you pay for that." As they talked, Isabella learned that Daniel supported his whole family, a sick mother and a younger sister in college. The dismissal had been cruel. She promised to help, but inside, a decision formed. It was time to confront Raphael about the methods he was using. At Imperial Luxury, Charles received an unexpected visit from Richard Almeida. The owner, now ex-owner, came in pale, avoiding eye contact. "Charles, we have a problem. The company has been sold. The new owner arrives today." Charles laughed, disbelieving. "Sold? To whom?" Richard stared at his shoes. "To Raphael Souza. the husband of the woman you humiliated. The blood drained from Charles's face. He knew the name, everyone in business did. Rafael Souza was notorious for discretion, and for being merciless when provoked. "This is a mistake," Charles stammered. "I was only protecting the company's interests." Richard shook his head. "You underestimated the wrong person, Charles. And I paid the price for your arrogance." Unaware, Rafael was already on his way to the dealership. In the car, he took a call from Isabella. "Rafael, I heard about Daniel. He was fired for trying to do the right thing. What are you planning?" Isabella's voice was firm but heavy with concern. Rafael kept his calm. "Isabella, some lessons must be learned. But I promise Daniel will be made whole." She sighed. "I do not want anyone destroyed, Rafael. Remember what we went through? Your promise to use our influence for good, not for vengeance." The call ended in unresolved tension, and Rafael felt the weight of her words. He had always admired Isabella's compassion, and now it stood as a brake on his anger. At 10 o'clock sharp, a silver Rolls-Royce Phantom stopped at Imperial Luxury. Rafael stepped out, his sober suit doing nothing to hide his authority. The sales team gathered, whispering, trading nervous glances. Charles, trying to hold himself together, advanced with a strained smile. "Mr. Souza, welcome. It is an honor to have you here." Rafael ignored the outstretched hand and scanned the floor. "Where is Daniel?" The question shot through the room. Charles swallowed. "Unfortunately, he is no longer with us. We dismissed him yesterday for insubordination." Rafael's gaze fixed on him with an intensity that made the manager recoil. Insubordination? Or ethics? At that moment, the door opened and Isabella entered, followed by Daniel. She had decided to come after their call, afraid Rafael would act on impulse. The staff gaped. The same woman humiliated days earlier now stood there, serene, beside the billionaire. Charles felt the floor vanish under his feet. Isabella spoke to Rafael. "Stop this, love. We will resolve this with dialogue, not with humiliation." Rafael looked at her, and for a moment his expression softened. Then he turned to the team. "From today on, Imperial Luxury will have new values. And Charles, you are demoted to intern. You will learn respect from the ground up." Charles stammered, "This is absurd. I have years of experience." Rafael cut the air with a hand. "Experience and prejudice? No, thank you. Daniel," he continued, turning to the young man, "you are the new sales manager. Show me that decency can be profitable." Daniel, stunned, nodded his thanks. But Isabella was not satisfied. She drew Rafael aside. "This is not justice, Rafael. It is just another form of oppression. Charles has a family, just like Daniel. Why not give him a chance to make amends?" Rafael argued that some people learn only through hard consequences, but Isabella insisted, everyone deserves a chance to change. Including you. As tension rose between them, Charles, humiliated and furious, retreated to his now shrunken office. He grabbed the phone and dialed. "I need a favor. I have information on Souza Holdings that may interest you." On the other end, a smiling voice replied, "Tell me more, Charles. I am always interested in bringing down empires." Charles did not know he was about to unleash a chain of events that would threaten not only Rafael, but everything Isabella had built. The danger was now real, and each choice would carry irreversible consequences. Tension hung over dinner like a heavy veil. Isabella watched Raphael toy with his food, fingers tapping the rustic wooden table she loved. "You did not see Charles's face today, Raphael," she said softly. "It was the face of someone who lost everything. That is not education, it is humiliation." Raphael raised his eyes, and for the first time Isabella saw doubt in his face. "I am protecting you, Isabella. I always have." She shook her head, deep sadness in her eyes. Sometimes protection becomes another kind of prison. In his small living room, Charles stared at the phone as if it were a weapon. The voice on the other end belonged to Edward Valente, a rival who had long coveted a slice of the Souza empire. "Charles, you have my attention. What do you have?" Charles drew a steadying breath, remembering the sting of being demoted to an intern, of serving coffee to Daniel, the same man he had fired. "Rafael Souza is about to launch a new line of electric cars. I know the expansion plans and the investors. I can give you everything, but I want to see him fall." Edward let out a low laugh. "Betrayal is a dangerous game, my friend. But deliver what you promise, and there will be a place for you in my company." Charles hung up, feeling a cold emptiness. He had crossed a line. There was no way back. The next day, Isabella woke with renewed resolve. While Raphael traveled to a meeting, she headed to Imperial Luxury. She found Daniel struggling to lead the team. Older salesmen resisted his direction, whispering in corners and ignoring his requests. "They do not respect me, Mrs. Souza," Daniel admitted, frustration carving his face. Charles whispers to them all day. Isabella put a hand on his shoulder. "Then we will change that. Today, we start the Second Chance Project." She gathered everyone on the main floor, including Charles, who had been assigned to clean the showroom glass. "We all make mistakes," Isabella began, her voice clear and steady. "Real character is in how we make amends. From today on, each of you will volunteer with Children of Tomorrow. You will work with children who face challenges far greater than any lost sale." Charles gave a bitter laugh. "This is ridiculous. I will sue the company for harassment." Isabella looked straight at him. "Charles, you have a choice: participate and perhaps rediscover your worth, or remain trapped in your pride. The decision is yours." To everyone's surprise, some salespeople seemed interested, murmuring about the initiative. Inspired, Daniel announced, "Anyone who volunteers will receive sales bonuses. We are transforming our culture." Meanwhile, Raphael received an urgent call from Marcos. "Sir, Edward Valente is making strange moves. He learned confidential details about our electric project." A chill ran through Raphael. He knew Edward, a shark without scruples. "How?" Marcos hesitated. "We believe Charles is leaking information." Raphael's fists tightened. His first reaction was anger, then he remembered Isabella's words, "Vengeance only creates more shadows." He canceled the meeting and ordered the jet back. On the flight, he examined his choices. He had always controlled everything with an iron hand, but now his wife was showing him another way. Back in the city, Raphael went straight to the project. There, a scene moved him: Charles, in jeans and a t-shirt, helping a girl in a wheelchair paint a picture. The former manager's face, once twisted with rage, was now gentle, focused. Isabella approached Raphael. He resisted at first, but this child, Laura, has leukemia. She asked why he looked so sad. They talked. Raphael watched in silence. Charles laughed at the girl's joke, a sound he had not made in years. "Perhaps I have been wrong," Raphael whispered to Isabella. She took his hand. It is not about right or wrong, love. It is about giving change a chance. Peace shattered when Marcos called again. Edward Valente just announced an electric line identical to ours. He is accusing us of plagiarism. Sousa Holdings stock is down 15%. Raphael felt the ground shake. Charles, hearing this, went pale. He had not imagined his actions would have such swift, brutal consequences. It was me, he confessed, voice shaking. I passed the data to Edward. Isabella did not glare, only looked at him with pity. Why, Charles? He swallowed. Because I felt small. And I wanted someone to feel smaller than me. Raphael faced a crucial choice: crush Edward with resources, dragging Charles into a lawsuit that would destroy him, or take Isabella's path. He looked at Charles, then at the playing children, then at Isabella, whose eyes pleaded for compassion. Charles, you will help me fix this, Raphael said, firm but without rancor. You will testify against Edward and help expose his dirty tactics. In return, you will have a real chance to start again, not as an intern, but as part of the team, if you prove you have changed. Charles fell to his knees, tears running freely. I do not deserve it. Isabella knelt beside him. No one needs to deserve a second chance, Charles. One only needs to accept it. As Raphael and Charles left to tackle the crisis, Isabella stayed at the project, holding Laura close. A spark of hope warmed her, but she knew the battle with Edward would be brutal. In that moment, Daniel rushed in, pale. Mrs. Sousa, the press is at the door. Someone leaked that Raphael is involved in a corporate scandal and that you are using the project for money laundering. Cameras and reporters crowded outside, their shouts like threats. Isabella held the girl tighter. The storm that had been brewing was now public, and their choices would be judged by all. The morning after the leak dawned with Children of Tomorrow ringed by reporters and cameras. Isabella, in her simple jeans and white blouse, faced the crowd with a serenity that concealed the storm inside. Laura, the girl with leukemia whom Charles had been helping, squeezed her hand. Will they hurt us, Aunt Isabella? The child whispered. Isabella straightened Laura's colorful hat. No, dear. They just do not understand what we do here yet. But the headlines already rang through the city. Billionaire uses charity for money laundering and Sousa empire in collapse. A fall that began with a humiliation at a dealership now threatened to swallow everything Isabella and Raphael had built. At Sousa Holdings, Raphael stared at a screen awash in red graphs. Shares had fallen 30% in 2 hours, and investors were calling in panic. Marcos entered with a tablet, face pale. Sir, Edward Valente called a press conference at noon. He claims to have proof that you stole electric car plans and that funds were diverted through Isabella's foundation. Raphael closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of past choices. He looked at Charles, sitting in a corner, shaking. You see what your revenge has caused? Charles nodded, devastated. I only wanted to bring you down, not destroy Mrs. Isabella. She was the only one who treated me like a human being. At the project, Isabella decided to turn the media siege into an opening. With Daniel at her side, she opened the doors to the reporters. Come see our work, she announced, her clear voice cutting through the chatter. Journalists, surprised, followed her inside, where children with different disabilities played and learned. A reporter asked, dripping with cynicism, how do you explain millions transferred to this foundation? Isabella gave a sad smile. Every cent is audited and goes to medicine, therapy, and hope. Would you like to see the receipts? She showed tablets with bank statements and detailed reports, yet she knew distrust was like poison, hard to purge. Meanwhile, Raphael and Charles worked behind the scenes. With access to emails and recorded calls with Edward, Charles produced evidence that Valente had orchestrated the fabricated leak. He sent me altered documents, Charles admitted, showing screenshots. But I kept the originals. Impressed by Charles's emerging loyalty, Raphael placed a hand on his shoulder. You are helping us mend this. But we must move fast. They prepare a counterstrike, but time was against them. In his conference, Edward displayed supposed emails of Raphael ordering diversions, and the online uproar was immediate. At the project, pressure rose when government auditors arrived to examine the foundation's books. Isabella, sure of their transparency, nevertheless felt the weight. Daniel supported her, organizing documents, but even some children sensed the tension. Laura, in her child's wisdom, asked Charles, "Why are people mean?" He, with tears in his eyes, answered, "Sometimes they are only afraid, Laura." In that moment, Charles realized that his own redemption depended on facing his shame in public. Watching Edward's broadcast, Raphael made a risky decision. He called Isabella. "Love, I need you to trust me. I am going on live television to answer Edward." Isabella, on the phone, heard the exhaustion in his voice. "Raphael, do not do it alone. We are in this together." They agreed to meet at the studio, but traffic choked the city, worsened by shareholder protests outside Souza Holdings. As Raphael fought to get there, Edward unveiled a surprise witness, a former Souza employee who swore Raphael had ordered evidence destroyed. From a monitor at the project, Isabella felt the floor give way. The accusations were so convincing that even she doubted for an instant. Could Raphael, in his obsession with control, have crossed lines she never imagined? Daniel whispered, "He would not do that, Mrs. Souza. I saw him with you." But the seed of doubt was planted. Seizing his chance at repair, Charles ran from the project to the studio where Raphael was about to be interviewed. He knew only the full truth could save them. In the television studio, Raphael faced the interviewer with a calm that belied his anger. "Edward Valente is a liar. He tried to buy my company, and when I refused, he chose to destroy it." The interviewer pressed, "And the evidence? And your wife's foundation?" Raphael was about to answer when Charles burst into the studio, sweaty and breathless. "I have the truth," he shouted, holding up a flash drive. "Here are the recordings where Edward instructs me to forge documents and threatens my family if I do not cooperate." The studio fell silent, but before Charles could hand over the drive, the live feed cut to breaking news. New development: federal police granted search and seizure orders at Souza Holdings and at the Children of Tomorrow project. The screen went dark, leaving Raphael, Isabella, watching from afar, and Charles suspended. The fall had hit bottom, and now the law had turned on them. In Isabella's eyes, doubt became fear, not of guilt, but of the reality that even truth can be buried under well-told lies. News of the federal police raids cracked like thunder on an already heavy day. At Children of Tomorrow, Isabella held Laura tighter, feeling her heart race. Cameras pivoted to the agents entering the building, their spotless uniforms stark against the children's bright paintings. Daniel, pale, whispered, "What will we do?" She drew a breath, recalling every battle she had fought. "We will show the truth, Daniel. It has always been our only weapon." At the television studio, Raphael and Charles were hustled into a back room. The show's producer, sympathetic to Raphael, offered brief shelter. "We have maybe half an hour before the federal police arrive," he warned. Raphael looked at Charles, who clutched the flash drive like a life raft. "You are sure about what is on it?" Charles nodded, hands shaking. "I recorded every conversation with Edward. He mentioned a secret file on his personal computer, something about a past he wants to hide." Raphael, resolute, called Marcos. "I need you to breach Edward's system. Find anything that can help us. Now." As Raphael's network moved, Isabella faced the federal police with a dignity that surprised even the most skeptical agents. "Ma'am, we have orders to seize all Foundation documents," said the lead officer, a middle-aged man with tired eyes. Isabella did not resist. "Take everything. But please, allow the children to continue their activities. They have been through enough." Touched by the sight of Laura clinging to Isabella, the officer signaled his team to proceed carefully. While agents collected files, Daniel gathered the children for music, drawing their focus away from the chaos. A bold reporter tried to interview Isabella live, but she refused with a sad smile. Truth arrives in its own time. Back at the studio, Raphael watched the project's footage, worry etched on his face. Curled in a chair, Charles finally spoke. "Mr. Souza, I want to truly help. Let me speak to the press. Tell everything." Raphael studied him. "Why now?" Charles lowered his head. "Because Mrs. Isabella showed me I can still become someone better. And because Laura called me her friend." The simplicity of it moved Raphael. Then a message arrived from Marcos. "We found something. Edward lost a brother in a car accident years ago, an accident he blames your family for not preventing. It is personal." The puzzle began to fit. Raphael vaguely remembered an old case involving his father's company, where a crash was attributed to mechanical failure but never proven. Edward had nursed that grudge for decades. Meanwhile, at the project, Isabella received an unexpected call from Richard Almeida, the former owner of Imperial Luxury. "Mrs. Souza, I heard what is happening. Edward approached me weeks ago, offering money to lie about Raphael. I refused, but I have emails that prove his intentions." Isabella exhaled in relief. "Send them to me, please. And thank you for doing the right thing." Armed with new evidence, Raphael and Charles acted. They called an impromptu press conference at the studio, streaming live on social networks. Charles, in a simple shirt borrowed from Daniel, faced the cameras with courage. "My name is Charles, and I was the manager who humiliated Mrs. Isabella at the dealership." His voice faltered, then steadied. "Out of pride and bitterness, I betrayed Mr. Souza and leaked information to Edward Valente. But here are the recordings proving Edward orchestrated everything: the false accusations, the forged documents, even threats to my family." He plugged in the flash drive, and the audio played, Edward's voice ordering the destruction of evidence. The broadcast went viral in minutes. In the comments, stories poured in from people who had suffered prejudice, swelling into a wave of support. Standing beside Charles, Raphael spoke with unexpected clarity. "Edward Valente is not only attacking my company, he is attacking values that should be sacred: honesty, compassion, and second chances. We also have proof that his motive is a personal vendetta for a tragic accident in the past, which my family deeply regrets." At the project, the lead officer returned to Isabella. "Mrs. Souza, we reviewed some preliminary documents and, well, your foundation's audit is impeccable. More than that, we found testimonies from dozens of grateful families." He hesitated, then added, "Also, one of my agents recognized Charles's voice from the recordings. He has a cousin whom you helped." This is changing our perspective." Isabella smiled, a spark of hope rising. "Truth always finds a way, officer." But Edward refused to fall quietly. Minutes after the conference, he issued a statement denying everything and accusing Raphael of coercing Charles. "The recordings are edited, and I have witnesses who confirm my claims." He announced a defamation suit against Raphael. Worse, new threats emerged. Doctored videos began to circulate, showing Isabella supposedly diverting funds, crude fabrications, yet convincing enough to sow doubt. Realizing the battle was far from over, Raphael met Isabella at the project. They embraced amid the turmoil, tears mixing. "We need something irrefutable," Isabella whispered. Then Daniel, monitoring social media, shouted, "Look at this!" An elderly woman, Mrs. Martha, the same woman Isabella had helped with soup, appeared in a homemade video. "I am Martha, and Isabella saved me when I had nothing. She does not deserve this." More videos followed, from parents of children at the project, former Imperial Luxury employees, even some salesmen who had changed. Public support swelled, but Edward still had cards to play. The comeback had begun, but was not complete. At day's end, Marcos called Raphael, urgency in his voice. "Sir, we accessed Edward's computer. We found something worse than we imagined. He is not acting alone. A powerful politician is behind this, and they plan to destabilize not only our company, but the entire industry. And they know we have this information. I just received a warning. If we do not stop, Isabella will be the next target." Ice ran through Raphael's veins. He looked at Isabella, playing with Laura in the garden, unaware of the danger. The truth was almost whole, but the final villain was darker than anyone had guessed. Night fell, promising a final confrontation, and the fear that the price of justice might be too high. Night wrapped the city like a heavy cloak, but inside Children of Tomorrow, a stubborn light held. Raphael looked at Isabella, cradling a sleeping Laura, and a crystal clarity rose from the chaos. "It is time to end this," he said softly, meeting her eyes. "But not the way I would have before." "Our way." Isabella nodded, deep serenity on her face. They knew the final battle would not be fought with conventional weapons, but with the most powerful truth they possessed, their story. Meanwhile, Edward Valente and his political ally, Congressman Costa, celebrated in an exclusive restaurant. "In 24 hours, the Souza Empire will be history," Costa laughed, toasting with champagne. They did not know Raphael and Isabella had already summoned an unlikely network of allies: Charles, Daniel, Mrs. Martha, parents from the project, and even Richard Almeida. Together, they formed a mosaic of redemption and resistance. The next morning, while the press speculated about the couple's disappearance, they entered the floor of the Legislative Assembly, where Costa prepared his final blow. In her simple jeans and white blouse, Isabella reached the microphone before anyone could stop her. "Honorable members, my name is Isabella Souza. I came to tell a story about a man who judged a woman by her clothes, and about a system that protects those who destroy in order to rise." What followed was not a speech, but living testimony. Charles spoke of his transformation from perpetrator to redeemed. Daniel described the prejudice he had always faced. Parents of children with disabilities shared how the foundation had changed their lives. And Richard, the former owner of the dealership, confessed his regret for turning a blind eye to injustice. Each word was a brick, building a monument to truth. Watching from his office, Edward felt panic churn. He ordered media allies to cut the feed, but it was too late. Raphael had anticipated it and ensured the broadcast streamed directly on social networks, without intermediaries. The video went viral, showing not only the accusations, but the raw beauty of ordinary people standing against entrenched power. When Laura, the girl who had helped change Charles, took the microphone, her fragile but clear voice carried, "Uncle Charles was angry, but now he plays with me. Aunt Isabella taught me everyone can change. Why cannot the bad men change too?" The simplicity of the question rolled like thunder through the chamber. In that moment, Raphael made his final move. He did not attack Edward with lawsuits or threats, he faced him with compassion. He called his rival and said, "Edward, I know about your brother. About the accident my family did not cause, but that you always blamed us for. I am here to hear your pain." The surprise disarmed Edward. He broke down, confessing not only the conspiracy, but years of bitterness that had consumed him. The outcome was extraordinary and unexpected. Instead of destroying Edward, Raphael offered a way forward. Edward would become the principal donor of a new foundation for victims of traffic accidents, in memory of his brother. Congressman Costa, seeing the tide turn, tried to flee, but the federal police detained him with the evidence Charles and Marcos had gathered. In the days that followed, the transformation was deep and lasting. Imperial Luxury did not simply adopt inclusion policies, it became a national model, with Charles as Director of Diversity and Daniel as General Manager. The Children of Tomorrow Foundation expanded to other cities, with Isabella coordinating a national network of volunteers. But the truest victory arrived on a quiet Saturday, months later. Raphael and Isabella stood in the project's garden, watching Charles teach Laura to ride an adaptive bicycle. The former manager, now in a simple project t-shirt, laughed with genuine joy. "Do you see?" Isabella whispered, holding Raphael's hand. "Love really is the only revolution that works." Raphael took in the scene, children playing, former adversaries working side by side, a community in bloom, and felt a peace money could never buy. They were not the problem, they were symptoms, he reflected. The real enemy was the fear of change. Their legacy was not measured in billions or properties, but in hundreds of transformed lives. Charles became a speaker on redemption. Daniel created a job training program for youth from the outskirts, and even Edward, serving an alternative sentence, found purpose in his charity work. In the final scene, Isabella and Raphael stand hand in hand in the same dealership where it all began. Now, the doors are open to everyone, and the children from the project visit regularly to learn about cars. "Do you remember that morning?" she asks. Raphael smiles. "I remember seeing the strongest woman I would ever meet, and not realizing she would teach me that true wealth is not in having, but in transforming." The sun sets, lighting the new sign on the facade, Imperial Luxury, where every person is a treasure. A journey that began in humiliation ends with a lesson that will echo for generations. No system is strong enough to withstand the power of a courageous heart, and no darkness is too deep for the light of compassion.